Do you feel sorry for Meghan? 0207 862 2222. So, here's why I'm asking. The Duchess of Sussex has opened up to young Australians, saying she was bullied and attacked every day for a decade on social media. Have a listen.
For now 10 years, every day for 10 years, I have been bullied and attacked. And I was the most trolled person in the entire world, man or woman. And I'm still here. And so when I think of all of you and what you're experiencing, I think so much of that is having to realize that, that industry, that billion-dollar industry that is completely anchored and predicated on cruelty to get clicks, that's not going to change. So you have to be stronger than that.
I think she's had a lot of bad press, a lot of it self-inflicted, but watching that clip has actually provided a bit of context there. She was clearly talking to young people who feel overwhelmed by what's happened to them. And she was saying, it was a pep talk about resilience. And she was saying, you can handle this, you've got this, because believe me, I've been trolled, and she may not be number one in the world, but she has certainly had an awful lot of horrible stuff go down on the internet heading her way. And, I've got a little soft spot for her, which I always get killed for saying. But I think on this particular one, she was actually saying something very positive to young people to sort of get through all this and not be overwhelmed by it.
What do you think?
So this is really interesting, and I'm glad you showed this clip, because she was talking about the industry that was built behind the abuse and bullying that she received. And of course, she's absolutely right. These kind of accounts are specifically called single-person hate accounts. And
really?
Yes. And they're on various different social media platforms. And in one particular social media platform, researchers showed that such sites earn 2.8 million per annum from advertisements.
So in other words,
this is where the money comes from.
By setting up this thing that automatically attacks Meghan every day, you attract some followers and you can then run some adverts.
Absolutely.
That's sickening. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And, there was research undertaken in relation to this in regards specifically to Twitter, as it was then called. It was the company was called Bot Sentinel. They were able to identify in their research that from just 83 accounts, they managed to reach over 17 million people.
As in bot accounts?
Yes.
OK.
So this is an organised industry based on hate. Why is that allowed to happen?
Rebecca's in Derbyshire. Well, is she right to say this? She's the most trolled person in the world.
Absolutely. Why shouldn't she?
Probably right. I'm trying to think of anyone who's more trolled, probably at the moment Peter Mandelson, but... there'll be a few to choose from.
I actually think that Meghan was trolled more than what I've seen of Peter Mandelson,
sure.
if I'm honest.
He's
it
not
was
online.
Day in and day out, and I actually feel really strongly about it, to be honest. Just because the bullying, I just can't believe, I've never seen anything like it. From, it started off with where she was writing on bananas, which was, maybe a bit odd. But from that day, the trolling started and, it just went down from there. Yeah. It was day in and day out.
What about Gitto's thing of just don't look at it? X is just filthy. Just turn it off.
But, do you say that to, teenagers at school that are being bullied and it's online? It's seen as horrendous.
Yeah,
you couldn't move for it. It was on every single paper every single day. You couldn't have, on every news channel. They had a sister and a dad on to slag her off. And
but that's a bit different, and that's not trolling. We're talking here about this sort of festering pit that has been developed on social media, where some people are targeted. Thank you, Rebecca. Although she took on the palace establishment. And I know Paula's going to disagree with me now. She basically accused them of racism through an interview which her husband corroborated without really any evidence at all.
I am going to correct you. You'll be surprised to hear that racists don't walk around with racist tattooed on their forehead. That's not to say that she was wrong. She might be.
She said they were talking about the skin colour of their baby and thinking OK, is that not allowed?
So it's all about context. And this is the problem with proving racism. When you're in a situation where somebody says, Gitto and Paula are finally having a beloved child. How wonderful. Yeah, and we've discussed whether it's going to have blue eyes or brown hair. Isn't that fantastic? Or you're in a room where you walk in and there's stony faces and somebody in the background says, yeah, I wonder what it's going to look like. I hope it's light-skinned. Context, Jeremy, context. Can I just say, John's absolutely right. I'm really disappointed in the institution that is the royal family in allowing this industry to thrive. They could have put a stop to this and they've chosen not to.
Yeah, you know what? It all started, I think, when they had the wedding, Harry and Meghan, and it was such a great success. And someone, on behalf of William and Kate, started to brief against. You could see it, you know, and it just got out of control. And then it framed them, and they just then left, and then it got worse. Thank you, Tony. Gertrude in London. We've spoken before about Meghan, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Are you a fan or not? I can't remember.
I'm certainly a fan, and Meghan has been trolled from day one.
Yeah.
And first about the racism, there were 72 MPs that wrote an open letter to the tabloid condemning the way they were writing about Meghan with what they call colonial undertone.
Interesting, yeah. Wouldn't dispute that.
And Neil Basu was the head of counterterrorism while Meghan and Harry was living in the UK. And he said from Meghan set her foot on British soil, she and Harry had constant death threat, and many more than any other royal, and many from the far right. And there's still people in prison today where they investigated all of them, and there were people sent to prison for them, and there's still one who are sitting in there today.
Oh, yes, it's so sure that side of it's serious. And as Paul was saying, the platforms allow this just random baiting and cruelty, and it's nasty. Thank you, Gertrude.
Squaddies, sit down for this one, because I need you to really absorb what just happened on a mainstream British daytime panel. Not a Sussex fan channel, not a sympathetic interview, a Jeremy Vine segment, the kind of show that usually treats Meghan as a punching bag. And somehow, almost by accident, the panel ended up laying out the entire case for why Harry and Meghan had to leave. Let's start with what set this off. Meghan sat with a group of young Australians and told them something she doesn't say for sympathy. She says it as a survival lesson. For 10 straight years, every single day, she has been attacked online, not criticised, not held accountable, which is the word the tabloid machine loves to use when they want cruelty to sound like journalism. Attacked daily. She called herself the most trolled person on the planet, man or woman, and she said it to those kids as a pep talk. I lived through this, and so can you. Now here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. The panel, people who do not have a reputation for going soft on Meghan, sat with that clip and had to reckon with the mechanics behind it. They started talking about something most people don't even know exists, single-person hate accounts. Entire social media operations built around one target, automated, organized, profitable. Researchers cited on the show pointed to accounts pulling in millions of dollars a year in ad revenue purely by farming hatred of one woman on platforms engineered to reward engagement. And we all know by now, engagement is cruelty's best friend online. Sit with that for a second, family. This wasn't a handful of anonymous trolls venting in the replies at 2 a.m. Investigators found a cluster of fewer than 100 accounts that reached over 17 million people. That's not a mob. That's infrastructure. That's a machine built with one job: make Meghan's life hell, one algorithmically boosted post at a time. We've said it before on this channel. The tabloid press weaponized language against Meghan from the second she and Harry got engaged. But this clip does something new. It forces people who are usually skeptical of her to admit the scale of what she survived. One panelist tried to draw a line between trolling and bad press, like being slandered daily in every tabloid in the country is somehow the lesser evil compared to being slandered online. I want to push back on that hard because it's a distinction without a difference. Whether it's a front page headline or a bot farm, the target was the same woman. The intent was the same: diminish her, dehumanize her, and profit from it. And then, credit where it's due, The panel went somewhere I did not expect. They connected it directly to the institution that was supposed to protect her. One host said it plainly. The royal family allowed this industry to thrive. They could have shut it down. They chose not to. Another panelist traced it back to the wedding itself. How fast the goodwill curdled once briefings believed to come from people close to William, and Kate started leaking to the press. If you were paying attention back then, you saw it happen in real time. The warmth evaporated, the framing shifted, and once it turned, it never turned back. There was a moment where a panelist tried to relitigate the Oprah interview. The old, nobody can prove intent, so the racism claim is unfair argument. I want to retire this argument permanently because it gets recycled every single time. Nobody said anyone in that family wore a name tag that said racist. What Harry and Meghan described was a conversation about their unborn son's skin color, framed with concern, not celebration. Context is the entire point. When a family is thrilled about a new baby, questions about appearance read as excitement. When the tone is guarded, when the room goes quiet and the question becomes, how dark will he be? That's not curiosity, that's something else. And Harry and Meghan are the only two people who were actually in that room, who actually felt the temperature of it. It's also not just their words standing alone. 72 members of Parliament once signed an open letter condemning the press coverage of Meghan for what they explicitly called colonial undertones. That's not Sussex voices. That's not the couple defending themselves. That is dozens of elected officials on the record naming the pattern publicly. And here's the part I need you to really sit with before we go further. A former head of UK counterterrorism has stated that from the moment Meghan set foot on British soil, she and Harry faced constant, credible death threats, more than any other royal, many traced to far-right extremists. People have been imprisoned for threats made against this family. Some are still serving sentences right now as you're watching this, so the next time someone tells you Meghan was too sensitive or that she invited the scrutiny, remember that sentence. Death threats, imprisonments, a documented extremist threat pattern, serious enough that a former counterterrorism chief spoke about it publicly. This was never just bad press. This was a woman whose life was, by expert assessment, genuinely at risk inside a system that, by its own defenders' admission, chose not to intervene. Let that sink in. The royal family allowed this industry to thrive. They could have put a stop to it. They chose not to. That's not a talking point from this channel. That is a mainstream British panellist on a mainstream British daytime show, stating as fact that an institution with immense resources, immense influence, and decades-deep relationships with the very outlets fueling this pile-on simply declined to act, not because it couldn't, because it wouldn't. Compared, but which hangs over this entire conversation. Where has William been through all of this? 10 years of documented industrialized trolling against his sister-in-law, a counter-terrorism chief confirming real, credible death threats, 72 MPs writing formal letters condemning the racialized tabloid framing, and through all of it, silence. Not one public statement defending Meghan's character, not one public rebuke of the racialized coverage. Silence, even as briefings believed to have originated near his own office are described as helping set that negative tone in the first place. Silence is a choice, family. When you have the platform, the profile, and the standing to say something, and you say nothing, year after year, while a woman is torn apart by a coordinated hate campaign a former counter-terrorism chief calls a genuine security risk, that silence is itself a statement. It tells you exactly where the institutional sympathy actually sat. Now put yourself in Harry's position for a second. Your wife is enduring what a counter-terrorism chief later confirms was a genuinely elevated threat to her life. People are being sentenced to prison over threats made against her. An entire monetized ecosystem exists purely to attack her every day for years. And the institution you both serve, the one with every tool available to intervene, chooses not to. What would you do? This is exactly why the narrative that Harry abandoned duty has always struck me as backwards. He didn't walk away from an institution that was protecting him. He walked away from one that, by its own defender's own admission on national television, watched his wife get torn apart and decided that was an acceptable cost of doing business. Leaving wasn't a betrayal. By every reasonable reading of the evidence on the table, it was a rescue, and that's the real headline buried inside this Jeremy Vine segment. A panel that is nowhere close to pro-Sussex ended up laying out piece by piece almost the entire case for why Harry and Meghan's departure wasn't just understandable, it was necessary. The trolling was real and industrialized. The threats were real and credible enough that a former counterterrorism chief went on record about them. The institutional silence was real, and by the panel's own words, a choice. Line all of that up, and Megxit stops looking like a scandal. It starts looking like the only responsible decision two parents could have made to keep their family safe. Some of you will ask why we're relitigating this years later. Here's why. The pattern hasn't stopped. The ongoing security disputes over UK visits, anonymous palace sourcing still treated as more credible than Harry's own on-record statements, continued silence still spun as dignified restraint, rather than what it actually looks like from where we're sitting. All of it traces back to the exact dynamic this Jeremy Vine clip accidentally exposed to a mainstream audience. Nothing about the institutional posture has fundamentally changed. What's changed is that more people outside this community are finally starting to notice. So I want to hear from you, family. Do you think the royal family genuinely had the power to stop the hate campaign against Meghan and simply chose not to use it? Is William's continued public silence neutral, or is it a message in itself? And now that you know about the documentary, reaction to you? Or does it sound like the only sane choice two parents had left? Drop your answers below. I read every single one and I want to know where you stand. If this one hit home, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and send this to someone who still doesn't understand why Harry and Meghan made the choice they did. The more people who see the receipts laid out plainly, the harder it gets for the old narrative to survive. Until next time, family. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and keep standing on the side of truth.